roll.
Right, we're back, and we have the Marshall. So, standard 1960A Marshall, slant front Marshall. We don't know when it dates from, but it's lived a life of rock and other things. And it has its 3 original drivers in.
Yep.
I presume none of them have been blown and replaced. They all look the same. They all look the same era.
We don't know for sure, but they look.
And one fresh one in there, which is there.
Yes, yes. That one. Very fresh out of the box.
And in here, we have the driver that was there. And this is an AVD cab if you're new here. So that stands for Augmented Vent Diffractor, which was me trying to come up with a buzzword for something that's quite complicated and hard to explain. But essentially, here's the cab that had that driver in. And what's going on is we've got a slot and sort of horn arrangement which acts as a Helmholtz resonator like a port. So at low frequencies you get more output because you're taking the back wave from the driver and flipping its phase to join the front wave. So standard speaker port theory. But then the clever bit is that it lets the mids and highs out through the slot because a speaker has 2 sides, as I shall show you here. This speaker has 2 sides, and obviously when the front moves, the back is moving because it's a cone. So sound comes off both sides equally, essentially. The only bit that's not happening on the back is the dust cap, because that's, well, can you see in there, that's the dust cap bit covers where it attaches to the voice coils. So you get lots of mids and highs off the back of the cone as well as lows, and we take the mids and highs through that slot, which according to wave theory diffracts them, so they split, move laterally, and the horn helps them spread out further. So that's like a wave guide which couples them to the room, sends sound out round the room. And because sound goes in every direction and we hear lots of reflected sound as part of life, I feel like I read somewhere that 20% of what we hear is direct sound.
That's it.
And 80% is reflected sound.
Well, there we are then.
Which kind of makes sense.
Get an AVD.
Particularly because hearing is logarithmic. So although a lot of the energy will be the direct sound, the quieter bits, in terms of actual sound power, don't sound that much quieter.
Yeah, okay.
Because a 10 dB difference is a lot quieter.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it only sounds about half as loud.
Yeah.
But it's 1/10 the power.
Right.
So if I'm talking to you in this room, you're hearing my voice direct, but you're also hearing it bouncing off that wall, off the floor, off the ceiling,
well, mostly.
that wall, and then repeated bounces.
Yeah.
Which is why it sounds really weird if you go in an anechoic chamber, anywhere that's really, really dead, and talk to someone, because you just hear the voice coming straight out of their face.
Even walking in this room sometimes, like if you walk in here on your own and shut both doors, this is a quite silent, dead, isolated room. It's like
it's quite an odd space.
You've come out of the workshop, which is really loud. I'm like, my brain goes a bit funny for a couple of seconds.
There's a little AVD cab down there. They're also extremely light because we build them with nice, fancy plywood that's custom made for us in Italy. We use a CNC machine and we do clever jointing and bracing. There isn't a ton of bracing at all in a Reformer. We started out making base cabs, and we still make a lot of base cabs, and they're braced to death because we've got really high power drivers. There's really high pressures in them. So there's oh no, they're out of shot there. There's a big baby 3 there, which has got so much bracing in. But even so, in this little cab, we're still bracing across the side. It's here, and then the AVD is bracing the top and bottom in itself.
Yeah.
Whilst if you looked at that Marshall, which I think is exposed earlier in the video with Davey changing the drivers, the sum total of bracing is a bit going from the centre there to the back.
And that's it.
And this is 2 pieces with some sort of weird butt joint. It's sort of screwed in there. The back's just screwed on, not glued on.
It's not great.
Big areas, lots of things to wobble.
Yeah.
High mass, but low stiffness because of the materials and the lack of bracing. So any resonances are going to be quite low down.
Yeah.
So they're, like in the low mid range.
Right.
So be prone to booming and resonating. There's a lot of energy there from guitar.
Yep.
Whilst with our cabs, light panels but stiff panels, so that puts the resonances up.
Yep.
And there's not as much energy as you go higher up, so it's harder to set them resonating, so they create less output. So you hear more of the speaker and less of the plywood box in this case, or in the case of this, a mix of plywood and chipboard.
And chipboard on
box.
the back.
Yeah.
Should we put it to test?
Yes. I'll stop talking.
I'll start cleaning again. Let's start in the Marshall, shall we?
That's what is connected.
Great, there we are then. That was fun.
That was really crazy.
Yeah?
Yeah, you might have noticed me acting very strange, wandering around there. I was literally lying on the floor at one point.
Most of that, Alex, was flat down, face down on the floor. That was
Well, my eyes were down, but my ears were in the right direction. I was trying to hear it from lots of positions, but a mix of on and off axis, and trying to get fair positions between the speakers without getting in the way of the microphones. It's quite difficult because we've got two SE4400s out wide and the JM47 in the middle.
I can't move because I'll get in the way. So I am only getting one perspective.
Right.
What are you hearing?
It's like what we heard in the other video, and it's like what comes across. But there is a bit of extra bite coming from that fresh driver in there.
I agree.
And that's why I was up close just then at the end. You could hear it biting through more than the other three. When you were chugging, when you were down low, that was so much weightier.
It's heavy, isn't it?
I want to say that one. The Reformer. The Reformer has more chunk than the 412.
Because I thought at a certain point this had lots of lows, but then when I kept getting more distorted, I realised it started thinning out, and it was just, I think at certain it just kind of booms at a certain point, which is not nice.
It's got a mid-range hump. It's got a low mid-range hump, definitely.
Low mid-range, whereas that's a bit higher.
That I think you're hearing the speaker curve. I think that you've got the Marshall. You've got 412 squeezed into a relatively small airspace for the four of them.
Yeah.
Because they're rear loaded, so the baffle's quite a way back, and then the driver's behind. There's not as much air in there as you think. But then it's a sealed box, so that's pushing the Q up of the drivers because the drivers want to be in a bigger box, and that makes them resonate more. And you don't really want a driver to resonate. You want a driver to just do
its thing.
The sound.
That had more clarity.
Yeah,
for sure. Like across the board, whatever I was playing, clean or whatever.
Even though it doesn't have the added bite, well not bite, added air, fizz, whatever of the new driver.
I didn't notice a difference in feel this time with the having. It's mostly the same, is it? Because that's 3 old drivers and that's 1, so you're hearing. Yeah, I didn't notice that the new driver.
Well, also I just don't think a sealed cab is as tight in the lows as a ported cab if they're done right, unless the sealed cab is much bigger to give you the cue and the roll off you want. But if you put your Marshall speakers, you know, these G12T-75s, these Celestions, in an optimum box from a like hi-fi perspective, which obviously you're not going to do, but if you did, the cab would probably be like 4 times that size or 6 times that size, and then that would give you. It would put the cue of the drivers where you want it, would stop the driver's resonant frequency being pushed up, and they would roll off more slowly and later, and the sound would be tighter, and then if you squeeze them in a smaller box, you'd lose the deeper lows, you get more of a low mid hump, and the more that humps, the more overhang there is.
Overhang.
So it's like resonance, like it doesn't stop start. Basically it's transfer function theory, so it's systems and control engineering actually happening in practice that it's... Oh, I know what will explain it. Car suspension and dampers, right?
Let's go.
Yeah, okay. So if you have a spring and you have a damper system, a spring damper system, right? If your damper is optimally damping it, what will happen is once something gets set off, so say it gets knocked up, it goes up and then it tries to settle back with as little overshoot as possible, so you end up with this badoink, slight overshoot, minimal overshoot, and then back to 0 point.
Its original position.
Yeah? If you then stiffen the spring without stiffening the damper, without adding damping, it boings, and then it springs back, and it goes past, and then it goes past, It takes longer to settle.
It's going under and over until it...
Picture car chases in old American cars. Or picture car... You know, when they boing, and they come to a halt and they do that?
Yeah. Like
You know?
Blues Brothers.
Exactly, that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
So there's not enough damping in the system. So you get that on cars where the dampers are worn out. But if you put your speakers...
to this is...
Yes, well, you put your speakers in a cab that's smaller, the air stiffens the spring of the driver, because the driver...
Okay.
You've got a spring system here, so you've got this is mass, spring here, so that's the surround, spring here, that's the spider.
Right.
But then you put it in a box that's sealed,
Yeah.
and the air's another spring,
So stopping
an air spring. So yeah,
speaker spring.
So it's like having a balloon pushing on the back of it.
Sure.
You're
Air
pushing up the
pressure.
spring rate, but the damping is only coming from the mechanical damping of the surround,
Right.
the spider, and then the electrical damping
Damping
in the voice coil.
Yeah.
So put it in a box that's too small, you put the spring rate up, you're not increasing the damping, so you end up with the driver that when you say start, it starts, and when you say stop, it doesn't stop for a
really
bit.
stop.
It keeps boinging about.
Okay.
Yeah?
I'll watch that back and then I'll have that. Should we
But
chug?
that doesn't do it as much,
No. Yeah, I agree.
because it's a ported box, so different cue.
Let's chug away and see what happens. Someone asked in the original video we did of the Marshall.
Something lower.
Something lower and down tune. So we'll whack out the baritone in B standard. We'll start heavy and I'll get more gain. We'll start clean and we'll get more gaining as we go.
Yeah.
Like normal, yeah? Marshall first?
Yeah!
both zoned out for a little minute then.
That was quite meditative.
Yeah, it was.
I'm a bit ill at the moment. It's just insane.
Yeah. The simple fact of it is that that's gonna break your back. It's 4 drivers, and that you can lift up with your pinky, and it's 1 driver, and it sounds better. It's amazing.
It thunders.
It's yeah. It shows on this.
Oh god.
Really well.
Yeah.
I thought.
I can't believe it. It's just crazy. These speakers, 4 speakers in a sealed box, can do more in the lows, but that box is not letting them.
Right.
It does make me wonder what you'd get from one of those oversized 412s. I know they don't get that much bigger.
I didn't know they existed.
Well, obviously you've got the Marshall straight front ones, so they're
Yeah.
fractionally bigger internally.
Yep.
Yeah. But then Mesa Boogie makes some slightly bigger ones.
Right.
And then, have you seen Emperor cabs?
No.
They weigh as much as the moon. I don't know if they're still in business, but they made some quite comical bass cabs where they'd like do an 812 with... No, 812? There was some really big stuff. Oiled wood, stained wood.
Right.
And like, they've just made it... They're just doom. It's like the sort of stuff you'd see behind Sun or
Right, yeah.
Sleep. You know, really heavy.
Okay, yeah.
Heavy, crushing stuff where you just go there and... Actually, I was doing some power testing of our prototype amp, bass amp, which is somewhere around here, and I hooked up 8 of our 12-inch drivers.
Mm-hmm.
So I had 2 big baby 3s, super twin, super compact, super mini, big twin, because I wanted to see how hot I could get the amp and check the cooling systems, and it made me feel sick, and I had to stop and make a dummy load instead. It was really unpleasant.
It does things.
And I discovered that the dB meter on my phone maxes out at 129 decibels.
Which is loud.
That was really loud.
For one frequency.
Yeah, so I do wonder if you had 4 G12T-75s
Yeah.
in a bigger sealed box.
What difference there'd be?
Well, I know it would make a difference. I'm just wondering how close you'll get to the 4 of them managing to do what this does.
Sure.
Because we've got a ported box here, essentially. That's what's happening in the lows. It's just the important thing about the AVD is it's not just a ported cab.
Yeah.
But it does make me think those Mesa Boogie Thiel cabs, which are their ported ones,
Yeah.
how good they must sound for heavier stuff compared to other 1x12s, because there's not many people making ported 112s.
No.
The problem with the ported 112, it's still this little thing down at your ankles,
Yeah.
and it's just, is it going to have the mid-range energy to compete? Whilst this, you've got the mid-range from both sides of the cone, and the stuff from the back's been spread around the room with the AVD.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Because it's
cool. I mean, on a separate note, these drivers are just wicked, aren't they? Like,
I really like them.
We overlooked these drivers for so long. We only started playing through them because this arrived, and we're both a bit like, oh, maybe we should have considered these a bit more.
They're just a great rock speaker, aren't they?
Yeah, if they feel great. They open up nicely. I love it.
Yeah, they're a nice...
It's a proper guitarist term, isn't it? They open up nicely. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, we need to do them head to head with a bunch of things and try and figure out where
100%.
they live in the realms. They're not like the creambacks.
They're like the 65Hs.
They are more like that.
They're more like that. They're closest to that,
heritage, yeah.
I think. So yeah, we'll do that video for sure.
But they're chunkier in the lows and they're not as tight. This has been really interesting, and I hope the video comes across. I'm thrilled. Please buy lots of these.
Yeah, they're great.
Because we have lots of people to pay here. And yeah,
And
there's not just 2 of us or 3 of us as you see in the videos.
Yeah. There is other rooms.
Wow. Yeah. Can I pick this up with one hand?
No way.
Hang on, if I disconnect it.
If you're getting down the stairs, you need 2 of you.
Come on, come on, how hard can it be?
I mean, I'm sure you can do it.
Well, it is heavy though, I'm tipping forwards. So that's 2 hands.
And then you just don't want to be going down the stairs, do you, to a gig?
Oh my god, it's got wheels. There we go. So here we have the relative...
Well, you've actually done it, fair enough.
Here we are, but this is... Yes. This has more base weight.
Which is ridiculous.
This has more actual weight.
Yeah.
Which... Oh.
Yeah, that thing is crazy. Buy a Barefaced.
Good. Yes, buy this. Buy this. Goodbye. We shall be back.
Ciao.
I think we're going to try a 212 against this next.
Radical.
Yeah, with some V30s.
I'll get it set up.
See you next time. Or just buy a cab. Thank you.